The next two questions are actually from Eric. I think this is Eric that's present with us, so he can offer feedback. Question number 3. People often have questions about how this looks operationally, which is in practice, especially at scale. They can envision how it works at community level, but struggle with going further. To that end, it would be useful to see the NLI team working through how question would work. How NLI team works through the questions works. Let's suppose we have a federation with heavy farming. They make heavy use of pesticides, which degrade slowly and over time spread well outside the federation, perhaps nationally. This does pollute the commons and comes at a cost that neighboring federations would have to bear. How does this work within a natural law legal framework, especially if the other federations aren't willing to accept the situation?
This is actually the most interesting and difficult question. This is one of yours, Eric.
Yeah, it is.
We'll F you, man.
Is that the answer?
Huh?
Is that the answer?
No, it's just that it's the hard question. It's why the international law ends up being natural law. It's because they're realistically we know what happens because we have this problem with pollution today. Now, all right. So we have this the negativa in pollution and the positiva in water rights. So, for example, there's no way that Ethiopia and Egypt are not going to go to war. It's going to happen because they're damming the Nile, the feeding into the Nile, and Egypt is the Nile. Without the Nile, there's no Egypt. It's a fucking desert, right? I mean, it's a mile wide at most along this river, all the way down until it. What's what do you call it? The end of the river that goes
Delta.
Anyway, so there's the positiva version, and then the negativa version is air pollution. This freaking catastrophe. I mean, look, you can't believe this stuff. For example, where would you put Canada in the list of most polluting countries? Where do you think Canada would be in that list? It's third. It's right after Qatar and Saudi Arabia. All right.
You ever been to a Canadian mining town? You'll believe it.
You'll understand why.
It looks like you've been hit by a nuclear bomb.
Yes. All right. So, but their pollution is largely internal. Now, if you look at what's that thing called in the Pacific, the Great Garbage Dump, right? Because basically the way that plastic works is it's floating in the currents. It sort of collects in this place. It's off on, I guess it's southeast of Mexico or southeast of California. I'm not quite sure exactly where. But I mean, they got machines out there. There's some volunteer groups that put together machines to try to clean this up. But I mean, it's just huge. It's a trash pack. It's a trash dump, the floating trash dump, the size of fucking Texas, right? So the I'm trying to give 3 cogent examples. The next is air pollution that moves from China into like Japan, right? And then because China is the polluter, right? That's the one. That's the polluter. The U.S. pollutes air because of various reasons, but I mean China's up there, right? Per capita, Canada's Qatar and Saudi Arabia and Canada are the worst. United States isn't far along, but we burn a lot of energy in general. It's not that we make a lot of waste product, if you know what the difference. So if you're inside China and you're polluting, what do you do about it? Well, they just pollute. Why? Because countries always pollute until they're wealthy enough to not pollute. All right, that's a normal finding of economists who are frustrated by it. We realize that's how it's going to happen. But China's holy shit, is it bad over there? So I mean, the water's ruined. For a place that has monsoons, the water's ruined. It's weird. So the other one, which is the air pollution, what are you going to do? We're not in a federation. There's no court between us. What are you going to do? What's the natural law say we're going to do? The natural law says that at some point you're going to find it in time. You're going to try to resolve it diplomatically. Then you're going to try to resolve it through sanctions. And then you're going to resolve it through war. So when we say the only thing NLI produces, our work produces, is why you're right to do that. Right? And why you shouldn't pollute other people, because they'll eventually kill you. Right? So it's just, so you ask the hard question, because it's a good question, because we can only tell you what's right, but there's no court. There's no court to decide. So what do you do when there's no court?
Escalate.
Yeah. You escalate.
What else are you gonna do?
Right. So all we're doing is saying this is what people will do no matter what. So don't effing do it. Right. And the second thing is it allows you to get a bunch of countries together in a coalition to say, look, we're all going to punish you if you don't. So go do it. And you'll just take the least cost effort. So what's the difference between the International Court of Force and the domestic under the natural law, which is the only law that can exist in the international system? And because there's no court, right? It's just laws of nature. And then within a court system, right? What's the difference? Well, there's no difference. It's just you're appealing to a court here, right? And you're appealing to an international court up here. The difference is that you're trying to preserve, and there's no difference in you're trying to preserve cooperation. Anyway, so I hope I answered. Eric, did I answer that correctly?
Yeah, I think for the most part, maybe the only thing is just like how would you assess like the costs of things like that are like difficult to measure, or you've got, because we've got the whole idea that you can't impose costs on people, right? And if Federation A is doing something that imposes a cost on B, right, and then B is not willing to accept whatever A is offering to offset that cost, like how does it actually look operationally, like in a court?
Most of the time, how does it look if there was a court? Are you saying that
if we had separated into federations and we had, proper natural law, rule of law, what might that look like in a court?
Between federations or within them is what I'm asking.
Between two federations.
Well, between two federations, there's 90% chance you're going to work it out because that's what happens.
Okay. Right?
Because there's just too many common interests involved. That's why you want these federations, is because they allow you both positiva organization, and they help small countries. Right, so small countries may be abused, but if you're in a federation, you can now use the central, because all federations have a court. You can use the court to organize the other federations to do it, and the reason this is useful is because in a federation, costs are distributed. Right, it's basically a corporation. A federation is a corporation. So, what's the real answer? Is if you're hostile to one another, they're going to fight about it. Most of the time, it's very similar to our civil law. As you may not be able to get reparations, but you could probably get it to stop. Right? So the reason that we do that is rational. It's so that you try to stop somebody as soon as you see it before it escalates. Whereas if you could get restitution for it, believe it or not, it's a malincentive.
Okay.
Right? So the way we've organized this today is the minute you see a cost being imposed, you should act on it. But again, it's all natural law. So who's the insurer of that reciprocity, of that proportionality? The Army. That's the insurer of last resort. That's why you can't ever not have one. Did I make that clear?
Yeah.
I always think people want a magic bullet answer, and I was like, until God decides to come down and judge and wreak His holy wrath on those sinners, we're stuck with the government, whatever government scale we can put together as the insurer of last resort is the last means we have. And that
And I-
last week is always violence.
And I think where people like sometimes have a hard time is they're expecting it, like you said, to be this magic bullet, this solution. Like, oh, if we do this, it'll like solve people polluting. And it's like, well, kind of like you were talking about, not necessarily, no.
Well, the other thing is people want to escape the cost of enforcement of your will.
Yes.
If you don't want people polluting your commons, you there's no one you can beg for a solution. You have to do something about it.
Right. There's an awful lot of where are mommy and daddy? Right. There's no mommy and daddy. So that was a. Go ahead, Mark.
I'll just reiterate that natural law itself just tells us how people and groups of people behave. So if you organize them in specific ways, you'll get specific outcomes. It doesn't prescribe anything. And then rule of law is application for a specific purpose.
Correct. So that Martin just pretty, we call it when in a movie plot they show you something so that you recognize it later. What's it called?
The foreshadowing?
Foreshadow. Thank you. So Martin just foreshadowed the what I consider today's big topic, which is look, what we do is science. We have an exploratory method, right? But we call the method, which is continuous recursive disambiguation down to first principles, right? That's it. And then we have a logic that results from completing that science, which is constructive logical falsification. We can tell you what people are going to do, and we can tell you that if people are lying, what people are going to do, then you can identify that they're lying. But we can tell you, given these constraints of how people do, this is the best way to organize a hierarchy of governments from the least developed to the most. We can tell you how to do that. But we don't, it's not an ideology. It's not a philosophy. It's not a religion. It's a science. It's like chemistry. Does chemistry tell you what to build with chemistry? No. It just tells you how chemistry works. It's like physics. Does physics tell you how to build the world with physics? No. It just tells you what's happened. We're doing the formal logic of social science. It's the same thing as the logic of chemistry, the logic of physics, the logic of something horribly complex like proteins, right? It's just a logic. And so we're just telling you, here's the system of measurement. If you put your finger on this fucking thing, right, it's going to go down and this is going to go up. There's going to be an equal and opposite counter reaction to whatever you did. And therefore, what we're trying to do is maintain equilibrium because that's the point at which more cooperation happens for mutual benefit. And sure, we play these fucking games all the time, right? I mean, because you're borrowing and then you're paying back. You're borrowing and you're paying back. As long as you're borrowing and paying back, it's not really a problem because that's part of the advantage of being sentient creatures. But in general, it's not a philosophy, it's not an ideology, it's not a religion, it's a fucking science, right? And remember what a science is. It's two parts. It's the method, right, of disambiguation, right, the discovery, combined with the logic that results. And we just happen to produce, because we stumbled on it, it's the logic of everything. So yeah, I think that you're right here. Everybody wants us to say, here's the magic bullet for you, and it solves all problems. You're no longer responsible for maintaining all these commons and holding other people accountable and do this. It's all going to happen as mommy, daddy are taking care of you. There's no end to insurance. At some point, you're the guy with a gun, in a line with other guys with guns, and that's how you're enforcing reciprocity. There's no getting out of it. It's wusses. I'm trying to get a laugh out of Eric, so I'm trying to think of something I can say that get a laugh out of him. All right. That was a great question, by the way.